Today on the Topic Show, Anheuser-Busch Halloween tweet is not as scary as their latest sales figures. UAW strike cost Stellantis $3.2 billion. Vivek tweet on Twitter files showing government corruption goes viral. Disney critique for a rumor of Hercules to be race swapped in upcoming live-action remake. Lovely, we definitely need another one of those. Vogue, Vanity Fair, and Wired Publisher to cut staff by 5%. AMD Q3 results are in. Caterpillar exceeds Q3 estimates, but their stock still drops. And Wana Banana child fruit pouches are recalled due to lead content. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say, he's great, handsome, and brilliant. He's me, you see. That's a joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Vogue, Vanity Fair, New Yorker, Wired, Publisher, cutting 5% of their staff. Now, specifically, the parent company is known as Condé Nast, and actually is a global media company founded in 1909 by Condé Montrose Nast, who was born in 1873. So, quite some time ago. It was so far away ago in time, people actually didn't have social media. Back then, a tweet was something birds did, physically. Now, in this case, it was later subsequently owned by Advanced Publications, and the headquarters are located in One World Trade Center in the financial district of Lower Manhattan. The publisher behind the name of Condé Nast, that 5% cut in staff equates to about 270 employees, and the CEO said that the move was in response to a shifting media industry that is leading to a decline due to social media traffic and digital advertising pressures. Now, CEO Lynch also noted that the audience is moving towards short-form videos that are going viral, pun not really intended, on both TikTok and YouTube, and that format is more difficult to monetize, which is very true. If you look at the YouTube monetization, it's one of those instances where you make very little per view, and it's one of those things where you really only quote-unquote make it in terms of sustainably making a living on the YouTube platform is if you have a huge number of views and you sell a company merchandise, swag, subscriptions. It is exceedingly difficult, which is why so many creators have sponsors. That's the only feasible way to make a product that is a YouTube entertainment these days. It's one of those instances where the formula for YouTube, when they first started the company and they're first trying to ramp it up, and when Google first bought the company, they were paying creators a lot of money because they had to build the audience. Now they have the largest audience on the planet. Literally, billions of people go to visit YouTube. So they don't need that as an incentive as much because the audience is already there. Now, how long will that audience stick around while you have competitors like TikTok as well as Twitter increasing more and more of their market share? I mean, that's quite literally the multi-billion-dollar question. Now, in regards to publications and good old things like magazines, well, those things were heavily subsidized by advertisements. That's really how most media works. And with advertisements, that's why I used to wonder as a child, how could they possibly give me this magazine for free? Well, it's because the publisher makes all their money from the advertisements. So that's why every 2 or 3 pages on, what was it, Nintendo Power or PlayStation magazine, whatever it was back in the day, it's why that every 3rd page or 4th page, so it seemed, was an advertisement. Because that's quite literally what paid for that to be published. And subsequently, other magazines, you actually paid a subscription. And usually, even the subscription was very, relative to the value you get for the product, pretty cheap. And traditionally, in some instances, that price you were paying was quite literally just the price to print it and to produce it. All the profit that helped the media company grow was from the advertisements. And we have this huge shift in media. Let me know in the comments, when was the last time you purchased a magazine? It's one of those things where I would almost argue there perhaps is even less value than that than a book. Now, call me an old soul. I'm one of the few people who still buy physical books. Not half my office, but a not insignificant portion of my office and I guess slash studio is actual paper books on a shelf. Partially because, call me old soul, I just prefer the feel of it. It's more durable, and I'm one of those folks where I do like to reread the books, and I find with certain books you actually gain a little bit more insight when you do that from time to time. But magazines, they're really not by their very nature very durable. Now granted, some people might hoard magazines for decades, but just the very nature of how they're produced, being paper versus as you have a book, the paper of that is much thicker. And traditionally, well, if I'm doing well in my quote attainment, I buy the hardcover books, which last even longer because they're more durable. But when it comes to magazines, they're worth so little. One fun little ADHD note for the day, and let me know in the comments if you prefer more or less of these moderate ADHD tangents. But one of the first companies I actually founded was Toppings Craigslist, where we sold people's stuff in exchange for a commission. And I would go to 35, 40 garage and estate sales every Saturday just to find more inventory for the stuff that we would just sell directly. And one of the most heartbreaking things was having to tell people that their lifetime collection of National Geographic was basically worthless. Like, so many people collected those magazines thinking they'd be worth a lot of money someday because it's a collection. And at the end of the day, they're really not worth anything. Most magazines aren't. People used to think that, and again, cover your ears if you have children listening, people used to think Playboys were collectible. Well, not really, because all of the gentlemen who purchased them would keep it. Usually not in very sanitary methodology, but nevertheless, they kept it. The only one that was ever really worth any money was the original copy, which I believe was 1950, was it 53 or 58, which famously had Marilyn Monroe on the cover and inside the magazine, which at the time was a huge controversy in terms of Hollywood and media because they thought it'd ruin her career. Ironically, they actually made her the poster child of the whole sexual revolution, and it was a huge, fascinating business use case. But if you look around the house, would you ever buy a magazine again? I mean, even Wired, my whole life actually would just read the website wired.com, and that's one of the publications that this parent company owns. So with all that said, I'm not too surprised that they're reducing their headcount and their staff. And granted, it is sad that they're losing their jobs, but the silver lining is, if you look at the glass half full, well, I'd say more than half full, it's 95% full. 95% of the employees still have their jobs. So they're not going out of business, don't get me wrong. But it'll be interesting to see what's the long-term effect, and if there's any possible way they could perhaps reinvigorate or bolster the production of magazines to get the audience and get the consumer reinvigorated with the idea, or perhaps it will just go the way of newspapers, where newspapers have become a very niche product and more people are just using more digital consumption for the media. So long story short, let me know in the comments section. Hopefully these folks are able to find new jobs at other media entertainment companies, and hopefully they're able to transition their skill sets into the growing industry of the media segment, which would be the more digital age. It'll be interesting to see, but as I always say, time shall tell. Thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Also, can't thank you enough for taking the time to click that subscribe button. Trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of November, so if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a comment is a great way to help me develop the channel, make the show better and better, and improve the quality. And lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your coworkers, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.